Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to this evening's presentation.
Greetings, my name is Harrow, and tonight we will explore a tale of arguments against classic WoW without dismissing them. In this piece, I will go over points against vanilla relaunch, and I will deep dive into them. I will honestly say how much logic is in each and every one. Truth usually lies in between points of view, so certainly part of reasons why people think classic is going to be a flop have something to them. No, I think this whole project is going to be successful, but I think many people go overboard and they are just blinded by hype, because let's face it, classic World of Warcraft has its problems like every old game, especially now, after so many years. Well, maybe not for everyone. For some, there is no problem at all, classic is just absolute perfection, but we have to think about perspective of the whole community, not only hardcore die-hard vanilla orthodoxies. Arguments are picked at random, just what I run into surfing the internet. Without further ado, let's jump into it. First argument I stumbled upon is that Blizzard want to just get a quick cash for selling people something they already sold in the past. Just making a quick buck. This is of course crap, but I understand that there are people who are not aware about long battle between "we want classic" players and "you think you do, but you don't" company. I will post a link to a nice video made by Classic Wins that covers recap of Fight for Classic in the descriptions below. Besides, from what we know, playing vanilla WoW will also grant you access to modern BFA or whatever is going to be live at the time, I don't care. So it's going to be more of a package deal kind of thing. Also, Blizzard had to put a lot of resources into remaking game all over. I will leave a link to developers talking about it in the descriptions. Great video. If someone didn't see it already, I strongly recommend you give it a look. And if you've seen it already, give it another spin. It's worth it. It's called Restoring History, Creating WoW Classic, and it was a panel on Blizzcon 2018, I believe. Moving on to argument that classic WoW takes too much time. I agree that you can fit vanilla any amount of hours per day you have, but you also have to remember that this version of WoW hits the time consumption jackpot. It's multiplayer. Well, today it's not really a multiplayer, it's online single player. It's true RPG. Today's WoW is not an RPG at all, and it's old school game, well, you have that. Because of it, you can play around the clock, and there's always going to be something you can do. It doesn't mean you have to be a basement maniac, never going offline. But, on the other hand, you have to put more time than most other games to achieve something. I talked about it in my previous video, so if you want the context, you can check it out. Anyway, I agree with the argument that classic takes up a lot of time, but I cannot agree with the phrase too much. Old school MMORPG is supposed to be time consuming. It's just a matter of your preference, not a flow of the game itself. Besides, you can reduce time required but slashing unnecessary elements you're aiming for, like off-spec gear, some gold in either PvP or PvE. If you want to do everything, you've got to have a time for it. Simple as that. Third on my list is, we know everything about vanilla, nothing is going to be difficult, and the game will be cleared in no time. And first of all, same thing applies to modern WoW in weeks after something is released. If you're not in some hardcore guild that is chasing after run firsts, then everything is explained to you in great detail days after it goes live. It's true that there is much more going on at the same time in BFA than in Classic, and yes, I agree modern WoW usually requires you to click buttons faster. But there are parts of difficulty that aren't there anymore. The RPG elements. I have to start with leveling, because nowadays you can do it in your sleep. When in vanilla it can put you to sleep, like a vet put to sleep a dog. But there's much more. Resource management is marginal now, when in vanilla it's a crucial part of the game. Itemization on BFA practically does not exist. Item level and the right side stats. That's all. On vanilla you can keep 3, 4 to 5 pieces for one slot to fight different enemies, or different type of enemies like AoE packs or single target, especially when you're a tank. And finally, there are very delicate mechanics like spell batching. PvP veterans especially can tell you how important part of the game it was back then. Vanishing a Blind, or later in TBC one of my all-time favorite, Shadow Word Deathing Polymorph. For old classic veterans, game is going to be pretty straightforward to some extent, but newcomers, especially from BFA, I can guarantee you're going to have a long and difficult learning curve, and suddenly you won't think vanilla is too easy. Bonus? New strategies emerged on private servers over the years that didn't exist in Classic when it first launched. But because of private servers' nature, we cannot say for sure if they are viable. We have a lot of testing to do. Those ideas need test of fire on retail World of Warcraft. What's now? There is a lot of races missing. No Death Knights, no Monks, no Demon Hunters, no Shamis in Alliance, no Paladins in the Horde. Okay, those elements doesn't exist. There are bad things and the good things about it. But God, I am so glad some of them are not there. I understand some people are disappointed because they really like some combination I added later, but on the other hand, many mistakes are now reversed. Like Torment Paladins? Holy cow, please no! They have nothing in common. Why is it a thing now? Why? Moving on. Monks, they are just a mistake in my opinion. Unnecessary feature, the game would be better off without them. Worgens are just a disaster. Adding them to the game was absurd. Whole lore about them had to be rewritten. Parts of the old world redesigned to make them fit. Retcon done wrong, if you ask me. Plus, it's basically a second human faction with a twist. Alliance needed that like you need your back pain. I hate rewriting story for some stupid design to make sense, but it's a topic for another video. Moving on. About Shamis and Palis. Yes, it kinda sucks. You gotta go Alliance for a Paladin, and a Horde just to be a Shami. It makes game even less balanced, and makes race for world firsts unfair. But it creates environment that makes Classic so great for majority of the community. Interactions between factions are authentic. Somehow, players and their gameplay fit lore of the game like a glove. I want to remind you, social dynamics and community are the most important known game mechanic part of Classic WoW, and this, that Alliance has a Paladins and Horde has Shamis only, it shapes those dynamics in a good way. Next we got, balance is not there, some specs are useless, how can I play my main when it's not working? There is a lot to unpack here. First, yes, Classic is not very balanced, but to an extent neither is any expansion later on. However, balance in vanilla is worse than in the further expansions, true, but there is no highly competitive ground like arenas for balance to matter so much. In PvE, there are some specs that have marginal use like Bumpkin or Enhancement Shami, but it's not like you're trapped playing those specs. You know how endgame looks like. It's much worse when you're surprised by your spec being underpowered, and those surprises happens to this day. Moving on, my main is too weak for me to play it. First of all, if you can only play one class in one spec, I feel sorry for you. You're missing a huge chunk of the game. Second of all, if you're dedicated, you can usually make your main work to some extent. You're gonna put in some more time for it, but it's not like it's impossible. Of course, you probably won't be top of the top, but even as, for example, feral DPS, you can grant some value for your raid. You can still be a good performer. However, it's not going to be easy. It's going to be a struggle. And finally, maybe it's a great opportunity to find a new identity. There has to be other class that will speak to you if you liked one. It's impossible that every other is just garbage to you, and maybe it's just great time to try something new. Last for this piece, there is too much grinding. Again, it is true that grinding in vanilla is very common theme, takes a lot of time, and everyone has to do some farming, yes. On one hand, it's just time consuming, quite boring if no world PvP is involved, and often frustrating. But on the other hand, fact that everything needs to be claimed with a struggle, that you have to invest the time to get it, makes this great feeling of accomplishment. The feeling that is absent very often in modern games, not only modern World of Warcraft, but games in general. Like I said in my first video, in vanilla, almost everything needs to be earned. I personally hate it when game just hands everything over, just because it launched it, and here you are, you hero, get this, get that, be happy, take gold, take items, take everything. Be a god. You don't have to do anything, you're a god. I expect to do something in order to get something. However, looking from today's perspective, amount of grind in vanilla is really high for an average player. But you don't have to grind everything, you got choices. To do everything, you gotta invest a lot of time. But if you focus on a few specific goals, you can reduce amount of grinding significantly. That's it for today. Like always, everything is in description, any feedback valuable. I'd like you to comment or send me some other way, another arguments against vanilla for me to pick up, because I would love to clear things up. I know majority of people commenting are either diehard pro classic or completely against it, but I would like to be a little more in the middle, find the middle ground. I know I will play it, but I get why some people don't want to or aren't really sure. I kinda hope to help those people decide. Anyway, it's time to end this bubble. Ladies and gentlemen, be well, and till the next time.